The text landed like a grenade in my inbox. Meet me tonight. We need to talk. My heart stopped. I stared at my phone, the glow burning my eyes in the dim light of my Brooklyn apartment, knowing exactly what I'd done to prompt those words from Julian. It was a mistake. A stupid, mortifying mistake. I'd meant to send that photo to Riley, my friend with benefits, a playful nudge to reignite our late-night banter. Instead, my clumsy thumbs betrayed me, and the image me, bare, vulnerable, smirking at the camera, went to Julian Torres, my dad's best friend since their college days in Chicago. Julian, the 30-year-old architect with warm brown eyes and a laugh that could melt ice. Julian, who'd been a quiet fixture in my life for years, always there at family barbecues, always asking how my art was going, always seeing me in a way that felt too deep for just dad's friend. I was 24, non-binary, and still figuring out how to wear my identity in a world that liked boxes. My name's Sage Navarro, and I'd spent years carving out my space in New York, far from the Chicago suburbs where Dad and Julian used to trade beers and bad jokes. My art, bold, chaotic paintings, was my rebellion, my way of screaming who I was without words. But that photo, that was private, a fleeting moment of confidence meant for one person. Not Julian. Never Julian. My phone buzzed again. I'm coming over. 8 p.m. No question, no hesitation. My stomach churned. I imagined him showing up, his usual calm replaced with judgment, or worse, disgust. I paced my tiny studio, paint-splattered canvases staring me down like witnesses to my idiocy. What did he want to say? Was he going to tell my dad? Or was this about something else entirely? The clock ticked closer to 8. I tugged on a hoodie, trying to bury my nerves in the soft fabric. My apartment smelled of turpentine and coffee, a mix that usually grounded me but now felt suffocating. Outside, Brooklyn hummed. Car horns, distant laughter. The pulse of a city that didn't care about my mistakes. I checked my phone again, hoping for a follow-up, something to decode his intentions. Nothing. At 7:58, a knock. My heart slammed against my ribs. I opened the door, and there he was, Julian, in a navy jacket, his dark hair slightly tousled from the autumn wind. His eyes met mine, and for a moment, I forgot how to breathe. There was no anger in his gaze, no pity, just something I couldn't name. Sage, he said, his voice low, steady. Can I come in? I nodded, stepping aside. He moved past me, his presence filling the room like he belonged there. He didn't sit, just stood by my easel, glancing at the half-finished painting. A swirl of blues and reds, raw and unpolished, like me. I got your text, he said, and my face burned. The photo. Oh God! I muttered, covering my face. Julian, I'm so sorry. It was an accident. I meant to send it to someone else. Please, don't. Sage. He cut me off, his voice gentle but firm. I'm not here to make you feel bad. I peeked through my fingers. Then why are you here? He hesitated, his jaw tightening like he was wrestling with words. Because when I saw it, I couldn't stop thinking about you. The room spun. I dropped my hands, staring at him. What? He stepped closer, close enough that I could smell his cologne. Sandalwood, warm and grounding. I've been trying to ignore this for years, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. How I feel about you. But that photo, it broke something in me. I can't pretend anymore. My pulse raced. This wasn't happening. Julian, steady, reliable Julian, was standing in my apartment, confessing feelings I'd never dared imagine. Feelings I'd buried deep because he was Dad's friend, because he was older, because I wasn't even sure what I was to myself some days. Julian, you don't mean that, I said, my voice shaking. You're just confused. It was a mistake. It wasn't a mistake for me to see you, he said, his eyes locking onto mine. Not tonight. Not ever. I wanted to laugh, to cry, to scream. Instead, I stood frozen, caught between fear and a spark of something reckless. This was dangerous. He was dangerous. Not because he'd hurt me, but because he saw me, really saw me, and that was a kind of power I wasn't ready for. We stood there, the silence between us thick with unspoken questions. Julian's confession hung in the air, a live wire sparking dangerously close to my heart. I wanted to believe him, but doubt clawed at me. Doubt about him, about myself, about what this could mean. Julian, I said, my voice barely steady. You can't just say that and expect me to what? Fall into your arms? You're my dad's best friend. You've known me since I was a kid. His face softened, but his eyes didn't waver. I know, and I've tried to keep my distance, Sage. I swear I have. But you're not a kid anymore. He paused, searching for words. You're this incredible person who paints like you're tearing the world open. You're fearless in ways I've never been. I laughed, sharp and bitter. Fearless? I sent you that photo by accident because I'm a clumsy idiot. That's not fearless. That's a disaster. He smiled, just a flicker, but it warmed the room. Maybe, but it's a disaster that brought me here. I turned away, pacing toward the window. Brooklyn's lights glittered below, a reminder of how small my world felt in this moment. What happens if my dad finds out? Or if this, whatever this is, crashes and burns? You're risking everything. I know, he said quietly, but I'm tired of playing it safe. Aren't you? His words hit like a punch. I was tired of hiding parts of myself, tired of pretending I had it all figured out. But this was a leap I hadn't prepared for. I turned back to him, my arms crossed. What do you want, Julian? Really? He stepped closer, his voice low and earnest. I want to know you, Sage. Not as your dad's kid, but as you. I want to know what makes you paint like that, what makes you laugh, what keeps you up at night. And yeah, I want to be honest about how I feel, even if it scares the hell out of me. My throat tightened. I'd spent so long building walls, painting over my vulnerabilities, but Julian's words cracked something open. I wanted to trust him, but trust was a fragile thing, and I'd broken it too many times before. Let's slow down, I said finally. I need time to process this, and we need to be careful. My dad would lose it. Julian nodded, his expression a mix of relief and restraint. Fair. I'll follow your lead. The next few days were a blur. I threw myself into my art, splashing paint across canvases like I could outrun my feelings. But Julian was everywhere, in the way my phone lit up with his texts. Simple things like saw your latest piece on Instagram. It's stunning. Or coffee tomorrow. Each message was a tether, pulling me closer to a line I wasn't sure I could cross. We met at a cafe in Williamsburg, a cozy spot with mismatched chairs and the smell of roasted beans. Julian wore a gray sweater that made his eyes look warmer, and I hated how much I noticed. We talked about my art, his latest project designing a community center, the way New York felt alive in ways Chicago never did. It was easy, too easy, and that scared me. You ever think about telling your dad? He asked, stirring his coffee. I snorted. About us? Are you kidding? He'd have a heart attack. He still thinks I'm his little kid who needs protecting. Julian's smile was soft, almost sad. He loves you, but he doesn't see you the way I do. My cheeks burned, and I looked away, focusing on the street outside. A couple walked by, hand in hand, their laughter cutting through the autumn chill. I envied their ease, their certainty. What if this is a mistake? I asked. What if we're just caught up in the moment? He leaned forward, his voice steady. Then we figure it out together. No pressure, Sage. Just us being honest. Honest. The word felt foreign, like a language I was still learning. But sitting there, with Julian's gaze holding mine, I wanted to try. Honesty was harder than it sounded. Every step toward Julian felt like walking a tightrope over a canyon. One wrong move and everything could collapse. But the pull was undeniable, like gravity, and I was falling. We started meeting more often, always careful to keep it quiet. A late-night walk in Prospect Park, our breath visible in the crisp air. A stolen hour at a dive bar in Bushwick, where the jukebox played old soul songs and we could pretend the world wasn't watching. Each moment was a brushstroke, painting something new between us. Something fragile but vibrant. One night, we ended up on the rooftop of my building. I'd strung fairy lights around the garden I'd built with my neighbors, a patchwork of herbs and flowers that felt like a small rebellion against the city's concrete. Julian sat on a wooden bench, his jacket draped over my shoulders to ward off the chill. I leaned against him, my heart racing as his fingers brushed mine. You ever think about the future? I asked, staring at the skyline. Like what this could be? All the time, he said, his voice soft. I imagine us, I don't know, building something. A life. Maybe a place where you can paint all day, and I can design spaces that feel like home. I laughed, but it caught in my throat. That sounds nice, but it's not that simple. I know, he said, his hand finding mine fully now, warm and steady. But I want to try. For you. My chest ached. I wanted to believe in his vision, but the weight of reality pressed down. My dad, our age gap, the whispers of a world that judged what didn't fit. I turned to him, our faces inches apart, and for a moment, I let myself forget the risks. His lips brushed mine, tentative at first, then deeper, like he was pouring years of unspoken feelings into that kiss. It was electric, raw, and terrifyingly real. But the world didn't stay quiet. A week later, my dad called. Sage, you free this weekend? Julian's coming over for dinner. Been a while since we all hung out. Panic clawed at me. Yeah, sure. I stammered, my mind racing. Julian and I hadn't told anyone, hadn't even defined what we were. How was I supposed to sit across from him at my dad's table, pretending nothing had changed? The dinner was torture. Dad's apartment in Queens was warm, filled with the smell of his famous chili, but I could barely taste it. Julian was his usual self, charming, easygoing, trading stories with Dad about their college days. But every time his eyes met mine, I felt the heat of our secret, like a spark waiting to ignite. After dinner, Dad stepped out to take a call, leaving us alone in the living room. Julian leaned close, his voice low. You okay? No, I whispered. This is too much. I feel like I'm lying to him. We'll tell him, Julian said, his hand brushing my knee under the table. When you're ready. But was I? The thought of Dad's reaction, his confusion, his anger, made my stomach twist. He'd always been supportive of my identity, but this was different. This was Julian, his oldest friend, someone he trusted. I wasn't sure he'd understand. As we left, Dad hugged me tight. You seem off, kid. Everything okay? Yeah, I lied, forcing a smile. Just tired. But the truth was heavier. I was falling for Julian, and every step deeper felt like a betrayal. Not just of Dad, but of the life I'd built, the independence I'd fought for. I needed to decide. Was this worth the risk? Or was I about to lose everything? The question haunted me for weeks. I threw myself into my art, hoping the canvas could hold the chaos in my head. My latest piece, a riot of reds and golds, jagged lines cutting through soft curves, felt like a map of my heart, torn between desire and duty. Julian was patient, giving me space, but his texts were a constant reminder of what we could be. Thinking of you, he'd write, or saw a mural today that reminded me of your work. Each message was a thread, stitching us closer. But secrets have a way of unraveling. It started with a slip. My friend Riley, who'd been on the receiving end of my flirty texts before the photo fiasco, saw me with Julian at a gallery opening in Chelsea. I'd invited Julian to see my work displayed, a rare moment of pride. We were careful, keeping our distance in public, but Riley's sharp eyes caught the way Julian looked at me, the way my laugh lingered when he spoke. "You're into him," Riley said later, cornering me at a bar. Their voice was teasing but sharp. "That's Julian, right? Your dad's friend." "It's complicated," I said, dodging their gaze. "Complicated's one word for it." Riley raised an eyebrow. "You gonna tell your dad? Or am I gonna hear about this blowing up later?" I wanted to snap back, to tell them to mind their own business, but they were right. The longer I hid this, the worse it would be. I promised myself I'd tell Dad soon, but soon kept slipping away, buried under late-night talks with Julian, stolen kisses in his car, moments that felt too precious to risk. Then it happened. I was at Dad's for Sunday brunch, helping him chop peppers for omelets, when his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his face tightening. "Sage," he said, his voice oddly calm. "Why's Julian texting me about you?" My knife froze mid-chop. "What?" He held up his phone, showing a message. "Need to talk about Sage. Can we meet?" My stomach dropped. Julian hadn't warned me. Was he going to tell Dad without me? "Dad, it's not what you think," I said, my voice shaking. "Then what is it?" His eyes, usually warm, were hard now. "Because Julian's been acting weird, and you've been dodging me for weeks. What's going on?" I opened my mouth, but the words wouldn't come. "How do you tell your dad you're falling for his best friend? That it started with a mistake but became something real?" I stammered, searching for an explanation, but Dad's face darkened. "Sage, are you involved with him?" The word "involved" sounded like a curse. I nodded, barely a whisper. "It just happened. I didn't mean for it to." He set the phone down, his hands shaking. "He's my friend, Sage. He's known you since you were a kid. This isn't right." "It's not like that," I said, desperate. "He sees me for who I am now, and I care about him." Dad turned away, his shoulders rigid. "I need time to process this, and you need to figure out what you're doing, because this could ruin everything." I left his apartment in a daze, the weight of his words crushing me. I texted Julian, my fingers trembling. "You told him? Without me?" His reply came fast. "I didn't tell him. I just asked to talk. I wanted us to do it together. I wanted to believe him, but the damage was done." Dad knew something was up, and the fragile world Julian and I had built was cracking. I didn't know if we could fix it, or if I even wanted to try. The next week was a storm. Dad wouldn't answer my calls, and Julian's texts felt like lifelines I wasn't sure I deserved. I painted furiously, my studio a mess of color and chaos, but nothing could drown out the guilt. I'd hurt Dad, the one person who'd always had my back. And for what? A love I wasn't even sure I could trust? I met Julian at the rooftop again, the fairy lights casting shadows on his face. He looked tired, his usual calm frayed. "I didn't mean to push things with your dad," he said. I thought we could explain it together, make him see. See what? I snapped, my voice sharper than I meant. That we're sneaking around behind his back? That I sent you a photo by accident and somehow we're here? He flinched but didn't back down. That we care about each other. That this isn't some fling. Sage, I'm all in. Are you? I wanted to say yes, but the words caught in my throat. I thought of Dad's face, the betrayal in his eyes. I thought of my art, my identity, the life I'd fought to build. Could I risk it all for this? I don't know, I admitted, my voice breaking. I need to talk to him first. I went to Dad's the next day, my heart pounding. He let me in, his face guarded but softer than before. We sat at his kitchen table, the silence heavy. I'm sorry, I started. I didn't mean to hurt you. Julian and I, it's real, but it's messy, and I should have told you. Dad sighed, rubbing his temples. I just don't get it, Sage. He's my friend. He's older. I'm trying to understand, but it feels wrong. I know, I said, but he sees me, really sees me, and I think I love him. The words slipped out, raw and true, and Dad's eyes widened. For a moment, we just sat there, the weight of my confession settling between us. I don't like it, he said finally, but you're my kid, and I want you to be happy. If he hurts you, though, he's done. I laughed through tears, relief flooding me. Fair. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. Julian and I took it slow, navigating the awkwardness of Dad's cautious acceptance. We went public bit by bit, holding hands at a gallery, kissing at a concert, building a life that felt like ours. My art flourished, fueled by the courage to love openly, messily, honestly. One night, months later, we were back on the rooftop. Julian pulled me close, his breath warm against my cheek. Worth it? He asked. I looked at him, at the city sparkling beyond us, at the life we were painting together. Yeah, I said, smiling, worth every second. And in that moment, I knew love wasn't perfect, but it was ours, and that was enough.